This is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling.
What the world is watching.
WWE Raw this past Monday was probably the first after Raw WrestleMania in a long time that reminded me of the Raws after WrestleMania, with the excitement and the new chapters and the new twists and turns. This was the first Raw that I can remember after a while, because the last year's Raw after WrestleMania, the only thing that I really remember, I think there was a debut. I think Ilya showed up, if I'm not mistaken. Ilya Dragunov debuted, I think, or made his Raw debut or something like that, I think. And I could be wrong on that because it's off the top of my head. But then there was also Cody Rhodes in the Rock's promo. This Raw after WrestleMania truly felt like, as Paul Heyman said, this is gearing up for WrestleMania 42. They did so much here. They held off on the Becky Lynch turn until this past Monday. It was, Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria beating Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, and then they had the rematch on Raw, and Becky and Lyra lost, and then Becky turned on Lyra, right? I think they did that. It feels like they did that, and I could be wrong, but it feels like they did that because sandwiched in between Logan Paul beating AJ Styles and John Cena beating Cody Rhodes was that tag match, and they wanted a little something to break the monotony. It was just like the way that they configured the card. Becky and Lyra winning was that feel-good moment after Logan Paul beat AJ Styles, which kind of sucked sucked the air out of the crowd. Even though the crowd wasn't the best, and I'm sure you've heard it. It was just crazy how Las Vegas, but I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you price the fans out of those stadiums, that's what you're left with. So they got what they paid for, essentially. Those guys didn't care, didn't give a fuck about who's who or who to cheer, who to boo, or having fun or enjoying the crowd, enjoying the moment. They were there because it was the place to be. They had the money to do it. So that's what you got. But anyways, I digress. So Becky turning on Lyra after Raw, or on Raw rather, after WrestleMania is interesting because now that Becky has basically turned on Lyra and Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman are aligned, there has been a lot of rumor and innuendo that suggests that Paul Heyman is back in the stable game. He's getting back in the stables, and I don't mean horses. I mean like groups, like factions, like Dangerous Alliance, perhaps. And I've seen a lot of people talk about this stable, the Dangerous Alliance. Growing up and watching WCW in the early 90s, that was a great stable. It seemed like everybody at one point was in that stable. I don't know if they're going to get it that big. I don't know if they're going to go that deep with it, but I thought it was interesting. Seth Rollins, now Braun Breaker, potentially Becky Lynch. I was already wondering if Rusev might join this Heyman faction. I think Michael Cole said a line about Raw being more dangerous than ever. There's just a lot of chatter going on there. It feels like, to me, that after Heyman watched the implosion of the bloodline, he said out with the old and in with the new, and in cultivating this new alliance, he needed an architect, and I think with Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, potentially, and I know that's just potentially, but potentially you get Becky involved in this. I wonder how they're going to expand this. I wonder how they're going to bring this to fruition. I would be interested in Montez Ford somehow joining. I think he would be a nice addition. I don't know if you want to bring a full-on tag team, or if you want to just bring a former tag team guy, kind of like, Bobby Eaton was in the Dangerous Alliance, if I'm not mistaken, in WCW. So maybe you want to do like a former tag partner, have him have a singles push. You can maybe throw Angelo Dawkins instead and have Montez Ford on the outskirts. But, seeing as how we might be going with Bianca Belair as a heel, maybe having Montez Ford join up with them would be the thing to do. On Raw, I saw a lot of Paul Heyman. Like, if you looked in the background, Paul Heyman was talking at one point to Karrion Kross. And you know how big of a Karrion Kross fan I am, and noticing that Karrion Kross is very much saying the same things that, Seth Rollins was saying about doing this for the business and saving the business. You know, there were 3 matches at Mania that seemingly were for the fate of the industry. You had Logan Paul and AJ Styles. You had the triple threat match, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins. You had Cena and Cody Rhodes. And they all seem to tie into some pivotal storyline involving Rollins, Heyman, Breakker, and Lynch. Like, it just seemed like it's kind of going in these weird I think they're going to tie up a lot here. A lot of these loose ends might get tied up here. You know, I would love to see Karrion Kross a part of this stable, though. I really would. I mean, I think it was somebody online. This isn't my idea, but I've seen somebody online, and I can't remember their name, but you know who you are, said Rusev and Jeff Cobb as a tag team joining up with Paul Heyman. That would be hard as fuck. I mean, sign me up for that tag team, because Rusev's jacked, Jeff Cobb is an assassin. I mean, that's a tag team to beat right there, in my opinion. You put them with Heyman, and you got money. I would also like to see someone like a Jordynne Grace join up with this faction. I think that would be good. She's a genetic jackhammer. She has ties to Braun Breaker. You know, Scott Steiner called her Big Mama Pump back in the old TNA days before she got in such great shape. She was a beast back then, but before she got chiseled and jacked, Scott Steiner gave her a little praise and coined her with the Big Mama Pump nickname. So you got a connection between Braun Breaker and Jordynne Grace right there. I'm just saying. I know maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I'm saying there's something to that. It's just so funny how, WrestleMania 41 might be the most critically polarizing WrestleMania that I have seen in a long time. You got people that are all over the map. WrestleMania Night 1 was the shits to some people. The only thing that saved it was the triple threat match at the main event. Then for Night 2, they say that whole card was was awesome until you got a shit main event. Okay, I'm not a WWE defender. I did not like the main event either. I wasn't into it. But the whole point of that main event was Cena was going to do the unthinkable, but the thinkable, and take that championship. And I think with a better crowd, it would have been better. I think if John Cena would have been more of a weasel and taken more offense from Cody Rhodes, if Cody Rhodes would have came out, beaten John Cena down, and then John Cena having to use these heel tactics that we're not used to him seeing more, I think that would have been a better story to tell. But, what do I know? I'm not a road agent. I'm not a wrestler or anything. I just thought it would have told a better story there, is if Cody Rhodes would have come out on fire and John Cena would have had to resort to being a dirtier professional wrestler in order to win. And then, even when he knew that wasn't working, then you have Travis Scott come out. But I really feel like they dropped the ball by not having The Rock show up. I know The Rock was saying, like, I don't need to be a part of it, and I want to put the spotlight on John Cena and Cody Rhodes and all of that stuff, but I really felt like everything seemed to be kind of leading to The Rock being involved somehow, and when he wasn't, it was kind of a letdown. So the point I'm saying with all of that is that so you get this polarizing WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2, and all of this criticism being directed at Paul Levesque, and it seems like whenever there's a lot of criticism directed at Paul Levesque, he goes, fuck you guys, here's the shit you want. And it always works. It always works. He always does it. He's got y'all. He's got these cards, right? And he watches us theorize. And we're always trying to call the aces. And sometimes he'll throw a 2 out. Sometimes he'll throw a 6, 7, a joker. Ha. And then whenever we call bullshit, like, this is a scam, fuck you, here's the aces. And then we go like, whoa, look at those aces. It's like he's using the art of war. You know? Never let them know your next move type shit. You know, you want a feel good moment? Here you go. Here's some shit that you're not going to like. And now you thought you were going to get a feel good moment. Now you don't like this. And then after you like complain the most, here's a feel good moment. And then here's some shit you don't like. You know, it's like they're forcing themselves to lose the momentum by lowering expectations before throwing out something that generates buzz and interest. And I think he'll do that time and time again until another company forces their hand. Because they don't have that luxury. They have the luxury of sitting back and doing some shit and trying something new, and they don't have a competitor on their back, like threatening to steal their audience. And their audience is so wide now that even, you know, AEW taking sickos, taking hardcore wrestling fans doesn't even matter. Because they've got all kinds of different fans now. Fans of UFC, fans of celebrities, fans of podcasts. So they've got their buzz is out there so much that if they lose a couple wrestling fans, they're not really tripping. But it got me thinking about if you give the fans everything they want, would you eventually run out of ideas? I thought about that question and it got me wondering. Because if they had done the Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Becky Lynch thing at the end of night one, how would Raw have looked? And if they gave us The Rock, and if they gave us Steve Austin, because it was funny how they had Steve Austin come out right before Cody Rhodes and the John Cena main event, basically telling you, like, you ain't about to get that. So let's give you that Steve Austin so you don't chant for Steve Austin throughout the whole fucking match. Let's shut you the fuck up right now by having him come out in an ATV and do his thing. It was like they telegraphed that. They knew that was coming. And they tried to get ahead of that. So it's like if they give the fans everything they want, everything that they suspect, at that point I know that some fans would be like, this is predictable, this is bullshit. I want something that I'm not expecting. So then what they do is they give them the Kansas City Shuffle. They have them look one way, like, oh, I know where this story is leading. It's going this way, and then they go another way with it. And then fans go like, that's bullshit. Like, that's not real. That's not right. That's not the shit that I thought was going to happen. Oh, that was terrible. Why didn't you go the way that I want you to go to? Well, because if we did, then it would be predictable. So I'm just saying that the WWE does this thing where they get the opportunity to play around with shit, and they don't have to deal with the consequences of fucking up. And they still have an opportunity because they've got so many different options at their arsenal to go back to the thing that you want and still get there. Because, I mean, we were all like, oh, Paul Heyman's going to join up with Braun Breaker. We thought about that years ago, and then we forgot. And then they came back like, oh, remember? So anyway, so it's fascinating what they're doing right here with this stable. I don't know if it's even going to be a stable, but I've been saying for a while that I think that the WWE and wrestling in general needs more stables, and not these like rebellious stables, just this group that is trying to take wrestling back. I think it would be fascinating, and I see what Karrion Kross is doing with the Logan Paul scenario. Like, I see that expanding. You know, Karrion Kross is like, I don't want these part-timers taking over the business, and I'm trying to get AJ Styles to understand that, but he doesn't. Like, there's a story there that could be really compelling. For every Logan Paul and Bad Bunny, you have a Karrion Kross and Braun Breaker. I think that's a good story. I think that's an interesting story to play off of. So I'm not sure where they're going to go with this stable. I don't know if we're going to get the Dangerous Alliance, because I don't know if there's going to be 16 motherfuckers like in the stable. But if I had to guess, I would say that Becky Lynch is more than likely going to be involved in some manner. And I would hope that we get Jordynne Grace and or a tag team of some sort to kind of round this stable out. Because I evidently we're going to get some kind of a tag team with Roman Reigns and CM Punk. Who else we get is anyone's guess. But I don't know if we're going to get the OG Bloodline coming back. I think that might be over with. So I think what we're going to be left with is going to be like Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and a few other characters, because you can really build things up now. You've got Braun Breaker being built up, like being the Batista of this new stable, where eventually he's probably going to turn on Seth Rollins, like how Batista turned on Triple H. But what a brilliant choice to add to this group is Braun Breaker. I mean, just an amazing choice. So we'll see if they're going to add any more, because they really don't need to. They can add Becky and call it a day. But it'll be interesting to see where they go with this on the other side. I'm super excited about the idea of Paul Heyman managing Braun Breaker and even Seth Rollins just kind of changing his character, because he is the architect. He's a visionary. So now he's got someone that's going to help whatever he's visualizing see it through. So I'm excited about it, man. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited about it. Whoever stuck around through this rant this long, y'all some real ones, man. But let me know what you guys think of this new Paul Heyman stable going forward. Who do you think is going to be joining the stable? Is it going to be Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins, and Becky Lynch, and that's all? Or do you see somebody else coming and joining the ranks? You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out, you guys. Again, this is the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling, and as always, stay tuned for more.